Yes, guys, what is going on? So welcome back to another episode of the Adapt Performance Podcast. So it's going to be a solo episode today. So I am a one-man wolf pack, all right? So it's going to be unfiltered. It's going to be unpolished. We know I'm going to get my words wrong. We know I'm just going to roll through. I'm going to do it in one take, as always, all right? So essentially, if this is your first time with one of the Q&A type episodes, so I've been saving up some of the questions that people ask me either more commonly or some of the things that I think are super interesting to actually speak about because I think they're really, really valuable. So the first one I kind of want to kick us off with is, what are some of my resources for improving my development as a coach? Okay. And that's a big topic. That could be everything from how do I improve my communication? How do I get better at programming? So I think I'm one of these people that I really do think that learnings are everywhere. Okay. I think that you could learn something from pretty much every situation in some way, shape or form. And obviously I'm not going to try and turn this into a life podcast. I do want to try and keep it geared towards strength training and performance. So I think from an S&C standpoint, when I first started out lifting when I first started out in sport, what would this have been? I don't know, 15 years ago, YouTube was the main platform actually. So it was, Facebook and YouTube. So you could go on YouTube. The same people that were around back then are kind of around now. You still see Scott Herman Fitness popping up. You still see Elliot Holtz every once in a while kind of popping up. So if you're somebody that's come across Elliot Holtz, you'll kind of see his transition. It's been a bit of a wild one, actually. I haven't seen his stuff in a little bit, but he went a little bit off grid and got a bit weird, to be fair. But yeah, so YouTube was where I kind of started out back then, and it was a little bit more based around exercises. It was you'd look at somebody's bodybuilding routine, you'd look at some new exercises, and it was all kind of geared towards bodybuilding at that point. Like, I didn't really know that strength and conditioning existed. It was bodybuilding, CrossFit was kind of on the come up a little bit, and that was really it. I don't really use YouTube as much anymore, other than if I am watching podcasts, to be honest with you. Sometimes I like to watch podcasts, sometimes I like to just listen. So yeah, that's something from back then. I think as my career's gone on, I've definitely been a reader. Okay, so I've definitely got my head into some scientific literature, some books, some research. Usually my approach with that is I found it pretty difficult to kind of open an S&C book and just read for the sake of reading. I could never really get my head around that. What actually gave me the motivation to delve into that stuff more was actually needing it, finding a need to get stuck in, so whether I was working with an athlete or, I was trying to apply something to my own training, or potentially a failed job interview where they highlighted that there was a specific area that I wasn't great at, then I would kind of hone in on that. I would kind of sniper towards that specific situation. So I've definitely done books, but honestly, I think the way strength and conditioning is changing a little bit, well, the world is changing a little bit. All the information in the world is on your phone. Okay, so it's on the internet. It is available via social media, for good or for bad. And I think in terms of social media, it's probably more, I'm going to say there's probably a little bit more bad, because the only way to really get noticed on social media and kind of get big viral growth and actually build following and all those things is by saying things that are controversial or making things really, really flashy. And it's a lot easier to say controversial stuff and just put content out. Okay, it's not always accurate. It's not always a good thing, because if you want to grab attention, it needs to be something that people find valuable, or it's quite shocking. So social media is one. I don't really use it a lot to actually learn. Where I am actually picking up my my development opportunities at the moment is coaching, honestly. So coaching is the number one. Okay, I've really kind of, to steal a phrase that Tim Stevenson used on the last podcast around shoulders, he said, taking an attitude of play. Okay, and I really like that, taking an attitude of play towards coaching and towards your development is good. You know, I think one of the worst things people can do is in a job, you know, let's say you've been in a job for 20 years. You don't just want to be repeating the same year on year on year on year. You don't want to be giving out the same program year after year after year. It's just going to get boring. It just kind of, it pigeonholes you into one way of thinking and just further exaggerates. Somebody can help me out with that one. Exaggerates? I'm not sure. We'll take a drink. It further kind of pushes you in that direction and creates your biases that much stronger. So yeah, instead of, you know, doing 20 versions of the same year, I would rather do one stint of 20 where you're actually building and building and building, and every year is a little bit different, building off the next and building off the previous, where we're improving in that way. So I use coaching as one of my main kind of resources for development, and I try to document that really, really well. Okay, so I've got Word documents, I've got Excel documents where I'm kind of writing down my thought processes and notes on specific things, like so-and-so had a really good session today, they mentioned this is what they're programming. I try and treat most athletes like a little bit of a case study. Some of it is more documented than others. Some is more kind of stored in this big old noggin that I've got. And the other one, you know, and kind of one of the reasons I've started the podcast is because I find such value in a podcast where you can speak through a topic at length and you can get some in-depth information, coach to coach, physio to coach, psych to coach, whatever it is, but you're getting different perspectives. And I think that's super, super important. And yeah, I would say podcasting is probably where I'm learning the most at the moment. And not that I take every podcast and I'm like, yeah, that is gospel, but it definitely gives me things to think about. It definitely gives me ideas to ponder and apply in a program, or try on myself, or even go away and dig a little bit deeper into the literature. Okay, that's probably another bit, is you want to be naturally inquisitive. You want to be curious about all the ideas that are being put to you, whether it is a podcast, whether it is somebody just mentioning it to you in the gym. You want to be able to go away and use some research skills for yourself, okay, and then apply it and see if it works in your population, if it works on you, if it works with other people, and all those things. All right, so yeah, I suppose that's kind of where I'm at there then. So resources for development. I do enjoy the odd short course. I think one of the more recent ones that I have done is Eric Cressy's. I did two of Eric Cressy's actually, like a medball course. It was really short, but going through. Actually, it wasn't a course. I'm lying. It was a webinar, that one. But yeah, taking webinars, so paying for somebody's time in that sense. If they're putting on a presentation in a specific area that you think, wow, they've got something to say, go and take it. Usually they're like 20 quid, 25 quid. So they're not super expensive. Obviously, if you're on a budget, it might not be your first port of call, and I get that. The one that I did pay for of Eric Cressy's was Sturdy Shoulder Solutions. So Eric Cressy is a little bit of a shoulder guy, and kind of provides some good information around the anatomy and how to solve certain movement problems that you kind of find in people. Okay, so I did that, and that was really, really good. Really enjoyed that. What else did I do? I did a digital online marketing course through Google, actually, and that was really good. I enjoyed that. But I guess coming more specifically towards S&C. And then the other one, again, just to kind of echo what me and Tim were saying in the last podcast, myself, okay, we are guinea pigs as coaches, and as people, you want to be using yourself as an experiment, as client number one. We want to try and use that to kind of solidify some of our ideas before we kind of put it out in the real world and apply it to somebody who it matters a little bit more. Okay. So yeah, there's some of my main resources. And I think, obviously, this is probably quite hypocritical in a way, but I don't use social media too much. There is some people that I do follow where I'm like, you know what, they put out some really good stuff and I'm quite keen on that. And you know, it's people that have skin in the game. It's people that I know have coached people, yeah, or they've actually been there and done it. They're not just somebody that's really nifty with Canva and have managed to kind of fool people into being an authority. So yeah, but that's one of the reasons I kind of put stuff out on social media as well, is I want to be one of those people that actually puts out quality stuff. It's not always going to be right, obviously, but it's going to be my take on things based off where I'm currently at. Okay, so that is my little waffle on resources for development. One thing actually I do want to touch on is degrees. Degrees and masters and all those things. You know what? It was good. I did enjoy it. I think I probably learned more from my degree than I did from my masters. What my masters taught me was a little bit more around research and being able to analyze things in a little bit more detail, but probably the biggest thing was statistics. That is what if I had to put a word to what my masters was, it was statistics. And I could probably remember zero of that. So it wasn't, it hasn't kind of stuck with me too well. But I think if I could go back and change it, would I? No, I still would have got it. It's easy for me to say, wasn't great, but that's me looking back on it from all the things that I've learned before. But what it did do is give me an opportunity to work with people and be around different like-minded people, be around different unlike-minded people, which is, again, that is super important. You don't just want to be in an echo chamber. You want to be around people that challenge your beliefs and challenge your ideas in a safe way, in a way that you can be respectful with, because that is how we grow and develop. All right, cool. So resources for development, a few ideas there. I guess that was more of a question to me specifically rather than any specific recommendations. And this next one was kind of actually built off a conversation I was having with an athlete, and there wasn't really a specific question at there, so I'm going to kind of fabricate a question here. But we were speaking through the topic of feeling sluggish on Monday morning after having a Saturday and Sunday off, just socializing, having a social life and just doing normal person stuff that isn't related to training and sport. And one of the ideas we spoke around, and I kind of suggested this, is, well, let's use Monday as a little bit of a Monday wake up. Okay, let's use it as an opportunity to prime the system, get everything firing on all cylinders. Let's kind of rev the engine a little bit. Okay, let's give the body a wake up. Let's give the mind a wake up. Go in, lift some heavy stuff, low reps. Okay, so very kind of primey. We're not trying to force too much fatigue on the system. We're trying to move really explosively. We're trying to go in with purpose. And this is just going to set the stage for the rest of the week. Okay, and if we think, I know this particular athlete is training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 5 days, okay? And what they've done in the past, and other people do this, and I definitely get the rationale, is going in on a Monday morning and kicking the shit out of themselves, using Monday as an opportunity to chase their highest outputs, because they're fresh, they've had 2 days off. And by doing that, they have a really good Monday session, okay? But what they've done is just kind of knocked themselves into a really deep state of fatigue, okay? Both central nervous system wise, they just feel a little bit flat, a little bit thuddy, and muscular, okay? Because they're going to have to try and recover from that big hit to the system. So essentially what they've done there is they've maximized session one, the Monday, but they have a shit session on the Tuesday. Wednesday, they're coming out of that hole a little bit. And then Thursday, they start to have a good session again. Usually, I think, providing you're not stacking fatigue on fatigue on fatigue, I think 2 to 3 days is probably enough to rid you of a lot of fatigue that we can generate in one session, in my eyes. So you're looking at like 72 hours, 48 to 72 hours. If it is fatigue that is built up over a training block and over a long period of time, and it's not one acute stimulus of fatigue, it may take you a little bit longer, potentially a week, who knows? I would probably say a week is what I would kind of work off. But anyway, rambling, going back to the original point, by treating Monday as an opportunity to go in and prime things and just get everything working really well, feeling good, feeling nice and loose and powerful, you've got a little hit of a stimulus, but you've left something in the tank. You can then have a really effective Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, okay? And you may fluctuate that a little bit. You may have periods of ups and downs. You're going to undulate throughout training intensity and volume, okay? You're going to react a little bit. But, you know, I think if you was to add up the output over the week of, okay, we go 100% on a Monday, means that Tuesday was shite. It was a 20, okay? Then I got a 40. Then I got an 80 and I'm almost back to normal. If you added that up over a training week versus going in on a Monday, hitting a good 70, hitting another good 70 on a Tuesday. Okay, so now we've got a lot of work. We might even have more work than we did before. And then a Thursday, Friday, where you can push it a little bit more because you know where your recovery ability is going to be. So yeah, I think this is more just like I'm speaking through an idea, but I think it's a good idea. I think when you train, you're training at the expense of tomorrow, okay? Every session is going to impact the next session. So yeah, you can go in and have an absolute PB day, but you are going to feel it for the days to come. And sometimes that's great, you know. Sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes that is what you need to do. But if you take nothing else away from this, again, referring back to that point earlier, play. Have a little play with it. There is a powerlifting program called the Texas Method, okay? And I may get this a little bit wrong. I believe they have a system where they train 3 days a week, okay? It is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And essentially what they're using is fluctuations in training volume and intensity across a Monday, Wednesday, Friday session. So they may start off really hard, okay? Pretty high volume, tough session on a Monday. Tuesday off. Wednesday, they're going to go in, hit an easier session, okay? A really, really easy session. And what that's going to do is provide a good recovery ability. They're still going to hit the same lifts that they did on Monday, so a bench squat and a deadlift. But because they've done that, they've just facilitated some more recovery, blood into the joints and the muscles, and got everything moving really nice, ramped up the CNS, the central nervous system, and boom, you go into a Friday where you have a really, really big session because you've almost used that Monday, dig a hole, Tuesday to recover a little bit, Wednesday to kind of start getting you up on that slope, Thursday you're above the slope, and boom, you've kind of launched yourself and used it as a little bit of a launch pad into a really great Friday session. And we will probably never know how training really impacts us. You know, we can try and be really scientific and take care of every X and O and all those things, but training is just one aspect of it. And that is the reality. We never really know how somebody is going to react to what we give them in the gym. We have a really, really good idea, but they have got 23 hours of the day to do something totally wrong or different, or something that actually pushes that training in the wrong direction. Okay, recovery, nutrition, sleep, alcohol, drugs, caffeine, all those things can actually really hinder what you do in the gym, you know. And I've had that situation before as well, where somebody has come to me after, might have been a 4-week phase, and said to me, yeah, this hasn't worked. This training program, I don't think it's working for me. I'm feeling absolutely beat up. And in my mind, I'm like, this training program isn't that bad. it wasn't, and I think maybe that's me looking at it from somebody that's been pretty consistent for my whole training career. Last 10 years, I've probably always hit 3 to 4 days a week. But I was dealing with somebody who was a little bit newer. But even then, I still use the approach. I still sit by my thought process of actually it wasn't that much, but we kind of dug into it. We dug around the topic a little bit. Well, how has nutrition been? How has, how stress been in your life at the moment? And before you know it, you start getting little things start coming out of that. Before you know it, they're having relationship problems. They're having issues with sleeping, they're staying up late, they're getting up early, work is still a nightmare. All those things impact what you do in the gym. Stress is stress. It all fills the same bucket, okay? It all fills the same glass. This could be training stress. Great, that's a good amount to recover from. But if you start stacking on work, studying, money problems, boom, that's going to start to overflow in quite a powerful way. Okay, so I guess the final one I want to kind of touch on is reassuring athletes when injured. Okay, so there's a paragraph that kind of came around this, so I'm going to give you a little bit of context. So this comes from a coach who has athletes. So I believe he works with rugby and what's the other one? Rugby and it might be boxing. I might be butchering that. But essentially, how do you keep an athlete motivated? How do you deal with the psychological side when you're trying to encourage them to keep going, be better, and use this as an opportunity? And it's difficult. It really is difficult. And I think using some empathy, and having good conversations with them, how you doing, how you getting on, those types of things, asking them what's going on for them at the moment is useful. You want to kind of not attack that subject, but you want to, put it out there and be open, because no doubt they're probably feeling pretty shit about it. And you want to kind of let them know that is okay. And literally having a little bit of talking therapy, just speaking to somebody, is incredibly useful. And I think the other thing, with you saying that you work in rugby, huge social sport, in the sense that you are around 15, 20 people a good few days a week. And depending on the severity of the injury, that probably will stop or be hindered in a lot of ways. So I always encourage the athletes that are injured, you need to rest up, you need to recover, you need to not put yourself in any situations that is going to be detrimental to your recovery. But I keep them in training, okay? You keep them in training, you make plan B as close to plan A as possible. You make those adjustments. And in the past, it's when I was at Hallam and I was working with a rugby team there, we had quite a few injuries that did come through, and we had quite a few squat racks, but usually we would pair up in 2s or 3s. And it was one particular day we were on it was a bench aspect of the day, and you can sometimes see people that have an injury kind of get pushed into the corner a little bit to do their rehab. And it's simple things like, no, right, you're not off in that corner where it's all moldy and gross and that. Okay, we're going to bring you into the centre of the room, so you're actually around people, you're having that banter, you don't feel like an outcast and somebody that's not part of the team. So getting them into the middle, okay, if they can bench and they can still do what the other guys are doing, great, you're in, okay? I don't care if you've got a full brace on that leg, everybody in your kind of team at that point, so the other 2 people on that rack are going to help you and have a little bit of ownership and actually bringing up their teammate and getting them to a situation where they're fully integrated in. So I think that's super powerful. Taking care of that psychological side, still being involved as much as you can. I think drawing on some of your own experiences is useful. It allows you to have that empathy to actually deal with the psychological side. And I know some people are going to say, you're not a psychologist, who are you to kind of tackle these subjects? And I do get it. I'm not going to speak about their deep childhood traumas and how dad left when he was young or anything like that. We're going to be speaking about the things that I actually know. You're going to be speaking about the things that is around training and sport and stuff that you can have a really positive, influential, conversation about. Because whether you like it or not, everybody does have an impact on your psychology as an athlete. Somebody down the street telling you that, oh, you've put on some weight, you've lost weight, oh, you had a good game the other day, you had a bad game the other day. That's all psychology. You're all going to take that, you're going to absorb it into the system, through the brain, and boom, they've had an effect. And that will always happen. So I would encourage people, to stay in their lane a little bit, realize what is within their remit. But I think I would back somebody that is a good thinker and has some good experience in working with athletes to actually, I encourage you to have these conversations and actually try and take care of the person as well as the athlete. Okay. So yeah, just have a really good conversation, but from an actual practical standpoint, then speaking about how we actually reassure an athlete and make sure that we're taking care of what's between the ears. Reiterating that first point, okay, get them integrated into the session, get them into the S&C session, get them in the middle of the room, get people involved in actually bringing them up and helping that rehab, setting up the bench for them, all those things. You need to speak to them clearly and articulate what is the actual plan of attack in their rehab, giving them realistic timeframes, giving them something to work from, giving them bite-sized and manageable chunks to tick off, okay? You're going to have a lot of doubts, okay? But if you can look at a piece of paper, you can look at a spreadsheet and be like, boom, I'm in week 2. I needed to be able to gain this amount of knee flexion. Do I have that? Yes, great, I'm on track, okay? Oh, actually, week 3, I'm not on track. And maybe I'm a week off. It's useful to know where you're at so you can adjust, okay? And it gives something to focus on rather than just letting people kind of drift off into a little bit of madness. And what was the other thing I was going to mention? Using this as an opportunity. I know that's something that people will kind of be like, easy to say. But I think depending on the injury, obviously there will be some that is super kind of impactful, concussions, things where you can't work around it too well sometimes because it actually is something you need to rest and take your time with because it affects, vision, thinking, focus, all those things. But let's say you've fractured your ankle. Okay, boom, you've got another leg. Okay, we can use the cross education effect. We can hammer the other leg so that the rehab process on the good leg comes back a lot quicker. Okay, we can get creative. If the ankle is fractured, broken, whatever, we can still work the quad, we can still work the hamstring. We just need to get really creative with that. Giving the athlete some ownership over that. If you can think of any ways where we can work around that ankle injury and we can actually get some good load through the quad and the hamstring, the glute, let me know. Okay, so involving them in that process. But the upper body, okay, get them working on stuff that is still impactful in their game, that's still really useful for them when they return back to play. Okay, get them smashing that, and I can use my own use your own story in this. I think I had a knee injury probably like 2 years into when I was lifting. And it was a bad one. I don't even know what was wrong because we had a few kind of issues with it and it just wasn't really reacting very well to anything. But as a result, I couldn't train that leg. And, I was on crutches for a little while. And by the end of that period, my bad leg started to look like a crutch. There was nothing to it. But what really kind of helped me during that process is, I'm a lad that likes to try and lift a lot of weight. I like to try and look good. I like to build muscle and all those things. The thing that got me by was training upper body, focusing on things that actually made me feel good, and finding those small wins. And even if it is bloody an hour and a half on bloody shoulders, or arms or whatever, yeah, it might not be the most optimal from a sports science standpoint, but looking online and being like, right, you know what, I want to follow that program. I want to do something different. I really want to chase something new and use this as an opportunity to tick that box. it's good. It's useful. All right. Cool. So I have spent about 30 minutes talking at you. So as always, okay, if you have any questions that you want me to kind of give you my thoughts on, they're not always going to be the most scientific, they're not always going to be right, but I am going to give you my take on things. Let me know, okay? Let me know anything you want us to talk around. I'm happy to do so. And also just generally, if you like these episodes, if you like the podcast in general, the thing that really helps this grow is a share, okay? A social media share. Just lob it out on Instagram. Great episode, Jordan. You're looking fit today. Whatever that is, give us something. All it takes is one person to see that, and they may listen. They may tell a friend. They may tell a friend to tell a friend, and that's great. Means a lot to me. We put a lot of work into kind of putting these podcasts together. They're definitely not the easiest to come and speak in front of a camera when there's not really people to bounce off. But yeah, cool. Sweet. I will speak to you all soon. Have a great day.